Hello, I'm Silent and today I'm going to be doing a complete and honest review of Modern Warfare Zombies. Over the past 7 months I've been playing MWZ, doing all the content, gathering all the schematics, completing the acts, learning the Dark Aether rifts, and doing everything the game has to offer. And with the release of Season 5 Reloaded that happened some time ago, MWZ officially received its last content update, as nothing ended up getting added for Season 6. So with the game finally being finished, I decided to go over it as it's one of the most polarizing and different zombie experiences we've ever seen. So let's get into it. MWZ features one zombies experience, Operation Deadbolt. This takes place in Urzikstan, and for any Warzone players that might sound familiar as zombies and Warzone share the same map. Pretty big shame, but I understand why this had to happen. The only 16 months this game had to develop probably didn't leave them with any time to make a full, original map for zombies, but then again, that's if they even ever had any plans to do it in the first place. Overall, for the map itself, I quite like it. Urzikstan isn't really that bad of a play space. I can't really speak for how it is in Warzone because I've never played it on its Warzone version. Overall, it doesn't have much of a zombies look to it, although I will give them props for trying to give it some because they changed the lighting quite a lot, especially when you go into the tier 3 zone. The lighting on it from the zombie version of the Warzone is like fucking night and day. Like sometimes I'd see Warzone gameplay and think, damn, that looks familiar, and then realize it's the same map because the lighting it gives it such a distinct look to it, and I like that. So how does the zombies gameplay work on this big ass map? Well, what they've done is they split the map into 3 parts. We have the low threat zone, the medium threat zone, and the high threat zone. Think of these being like round 1 to 10, and then round 30 to 55, and then 55 plus respectively. That's the best way I can explain it in legacy terms, but you can get a pretty good idea of what these zones are like just by the names. And you've probably noticed there's a huge element of the HUD missing. That's right, not a round counter in sight. This game has no wave or round progress in any other way other than the unstable rips, which I'll get into later. So you may ask, well, how the fuck am I going to get points to progress through this? And that's where contracts come in. Scattered around the map, you'll find these little radios, which when interacted with will start a contract. This will be your objective for a little bit, and these can range from staying in an area while you wait for a safe to open, to waiting for a P&D to go off, to fighting actual fucking people, not zombies, people with fucking guns, to disable ether reactors. Why they wanted to put real people with guns in a zombies mode? It's beyond me. There's just no good reason for it. And this is the first thing I thought MWZ did 10 times better than Outbreak. I like doing these a lot more than basically anything Outbreak had to offer. Although I do wish some of the other things from Outbreak returned, like the random helicopters you would see flying around, which would give you a good amount of essence, or the Dragon Missile objective. I quite like that one a lot. But at least we did see the return of the Holdout and HVT bounties. And now you may also be asking, well, how will the game end if there's no rounds? Do I just die? Well, no, if you die, you lose everything you have on you. Instead, upon loading into a match, a 45-minute timer will begin. And when that timer ends, another 15-minute timer will begin. These last few minutes are basically the endgame of a match, as the Aether Storm will begin to consume the map, and if for some reason you can't exfil in time, you'll just die to it. So you gotta make sure you move fast and get as much done as you can in that time frame. 45 minutes doesn't sound like a lot in terms of like an average match of zombies, but playing the game you'll realize it's more than enough time. If you don't want to actually wait out the timer, there's 3 to 4 exfils that'll spawn in around the map, and you can go to these at any time. So to put it bluntly, MWZ is not a round-based zombies mode, it's an objective-based zombies mode, much like Outbreak. Hearing that will most likely put any zombies player off the game. Just shove it to the side and never think about it again. And honestly, that's what I did. I didn't end up buying the game until like February because I just didn't really pay much attention to it because I heard there wasn't going to be any round-based maps in it at all. But as I started looking into the game more, the idea of a map that was divided by threat zones really intrigued me. And I was thinking, I want to play every zombies experience at least once, and this game is extremely finite unlike the others, so I needed to play it sooner rather than later. And as much as I disliked Outbreak, like I fucking hate Outbreak, I kept thinking this game might have done it better. And it definitely did. Way better than Outbreak. So what is the MWZ experience like out of game? Well, when you first launch the zombies mode, you'll be greeted by quite a few things. You get your dailies and your XP tokens, which are pretty self-explanatory. So let's discuss the containment level or the exfil streak. This is an extremely good idea that I'm glad Treyarch or Sledgehammer or Raven or whoever ended up working on this game after season 1 I'm glad they added it. Basically, how this works is whenever you complete a contract, your containment level will rise. In tier 1, you'll gain 1 level, in tier 2 it's 2, and 3, obviously it's 3. So if you do 2 tier 3 contracts, you'll get 6. And this is pretty important because the more you level up, the better rewards you'll get. Like at level 40, you'll start with 2,500 points. And at level 50, you'll get 50% off the mystery box, and at max level being 100, you'll get 20% off the pack-a-punch. Then if we move over to our loadout, we can select our gun, lethal and tactical equipment, and also our rucksack, which will hold the most important part of this game. What you're seeing is the core of the MWC gameplay loop. These are craftable schematics that you'll be finding by doing the contracts I mentioned earlier. There are 5 categories of schematics. First, you get your Aetherium, which is the weapon upgrade tab. In here, you'll find pack-a-punch crystals and Aether tools. Crystals will upgrade your pack-a-punch level, and the tools will upgrade your weapon rarity. Then you have your perk-a-colas, which is, you can take a pretty good guess what that is. All the perks in this game are returning from Cold War. Ammo mods are, once again, pretty self-explanatory. Wonder weapons, again, that's not really too hard to guess. And finally, we have classified. These schematics are the most valuable. They range from an Aether blade, which is a Hell's Retriever-like throwing knife, to a dog bone, which will spawn in a friendly hellhound that lasts until you exfil, die, or it dies. Like I said, you'll find schematics by doing contracts. And depending on what zone you're in is how you're gonna find schematics. Like for instance, you can only get the Speed Cola schematic by doing tier 1 contracts. Same example, you can only get Juggernog if you do tier 2. So as you can imagine, the harder zones you do, the better rewards you're gonna get. And this makes sense, although I wish you could get lower tier schematics in the high tier zones. What I mean by this is, let's say you're doing the tier 3 zone, and you want to get the ray gun schematic, for instance. So you're doing this, you're grinding tier 3, you'll never find the Deadshot schematic if you don't have it already, unless you want to go into the boring slog that tier 1 is. Because there was a point where I only wanted to do tier 2 and 3 contracts, although I didn't have Speed Cola. And it was one of the only ones I was missing, so I was forced to just go in, do tier 1 for 40 minutes, and go out, and tier 1 is just so goddamn boring. And this can bring me to another problem, or I guess it's not much of a problem depending on how you look at it, but it's just the annoying RNG factor of the schematics. Not every schematic in the game is based on RNG, there's a few you can get by doing missions, but the majority of them are RNG from doing contracts. For instance, back on the Speed Cola schematic, I didn't get that until my 77th match. Like, Jesus Christ, man. I remember, like, I used all my good shit, went to a match, got it, and left immediately. I didn't give a shit about all the stuff I wasted. I just wanted that out of the goddamn game. Like, I got the fucking Scorcher schematic before I got Speed Cola. The drop rates of schematics seems to be pretty inconsistent or just insanely low. You can either get extremely lucky or unlucky. For instance, I knew someone who played over 200 matches of MWZ and never got the purple Aether tool or the refined Aether crystal from the tier 3 contracts. And after hearing that, I thought, damn, I'm gonna have to start grinding for those because it's gonna take me fucking forever, because I'm a very unlucky person when it comes to, well, anything. Then when it came time to finally start grinding, I ended up getting the schematics almost back to back. Straight up, I loaded in, went into tier 3, my first contract. I got the purple tool. Did another, got nothing, but on my 3rd contract of the match, I got the refined crystal just right there. I exfilled immediately because I knew I was not risking getting disconnected. I understand why the drop rates are shitty. I mean, you gotta keep people engaged so they keep playing. Overall, I quite like the schematic system. It fits the mode, and it is very, very satisfying to finally unlock all of them. But there is one more thing that's pretty shitty about it, and that's the cooldowns. I get why cooldowns are in the game. It's probably for the best that they are there, but god damn, why are they so long? A tier 3 Pack-a-Punch crystal is 3 days long. 3 whole ass days just to get Pack-a-Punch tier 3 on a gun. And the weirdest thing about it is that the legendary Aether tool is only 1 day. Yes, 24 hours is still quite long, but the Aether tool gives you more damage. It's better and it's shorter than the fucking tier 3, and that shit just, it doesn't make any sense at all. AATs are the most bewildering thing for me. All of them are 3 hours long. And since the perks and the AATs in this game are basically stuck with the tier 1 versions of Cold Wars, all the AATs in this game are ass. They're all shitty, so there's no reason for them to be 3 goddamn hours long. Same with the perks, why the hell are they 3 hours long? They're also all quite shitty in this game. Nowadays, you can get them back faster, the more points and I think XP you get in a match will actually reduce the cooldowns. So let's say you get like a really good match in, you can get like 4 hours of cooldown time taken off. So if you get a really good match in, basically all your perks and AATs are back immediately, but it wasn't like that at the start of the game. You had no way of reducing the cooldowns. So obviously it isn't bad as it was, but still 3 days for the pack crystal is goddamn absurd. Anyways, cooldown ran over. I like the schematic system, it fits the way this mode is made, and you know, there's a lot of times where you might not be able to get a pack 3 gun in a match without bringing in a crystal, so it's nice to have one off the rip immediately to jump into tier 3 as soon as you can. MWZ once again takes place in the Dark Aether story. Set more than 35 years after the events of Cold War Zombies, you play as Operation Deadbolt, a faction dedicated to fighting the zombie outbreaks that have been plaguing our world. Sometime in 2021, Viktor Zakhaev and his faction Terminus unleashed a zombie outbreak in Urzikstan after finding a cache of Aetherium. Once again, this game has no set crew, so you just play as operators. But Deadbolt does consist of a few notable characters, such as Soap, Ava Jansen, Selma Green, and the return of Ravenov. This game tells its story pretty differently than before, since there's not multiple maps that have their own main quest. Instead, you'll complete acts. There are 4 acts in the game, and the first 3 have a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. Basically, you activate one, complete it, and then move on to the next, apart from Act 3, which you can do all of them whenever you want for some reason. But anyways, after you complete all the objectives in an act, you'll unlock the story mission. To start these, you must infill into Urzikstan and find a special story exfil and start it, which will put you into the story mission. These are basically what I can describe best as starting a campaign mission, basically. You're given a linear objective that you must follow until it's complete, and then the cutscene starts. The first story mission is called Extraction. This has you deploying into a location where you find and exfil Dr. Jansen. When you arrive at the location, you'll find a complete war zone going on, with tons of mercs fighting hordes of the undead. After making your way through the first zone, you'll activate a communications tower to locate Jansen's coordinates. So you're gonna fight some more soldiers and zombies, and then you'll eventually find her in a locked off room. Then you gotta survive for just a little bit longer, and then she'll come out and you'll follow her to a helicopter that you exfil in. Pretty basic and simple mission. During the escort, I don't think Jansen can even die, and if she can, I think she has so much XP that it's not something you ever have to worry about. Anyways, after completing the mission, the cutscene will start. This explains some plot points and introduces some characters. Basically, Dr. Jansen was working with Zakhaev, but wasn't aware he was a terrorist, and didn't know he wanted to use Aetherium for terrorist activities. After interrogating Jansen, Deadbolt decides to trust her in hopes of taking down Zakhaev. The second story mission is called Shepherd. This has us deploying into a neutralizer test site. Here we must fight through hordes of the undead and squads of mercs. Trust me, this is zombies gameplay. It may not look like it, but trust me, it is. You can tell by the one zombie that'll appear every 10 minutes. Eventually, you'll make your way into a building where you must destroy 2 SAM sites. Then you gotta escort an ACV. This is just like the normal escort contracts, although this one seems to have more HP. At the end, you gotta fight a heavily nerfed Mega Abomination, and that's all the mission is. Once again, pretty simple and basic. The cutscene reveals the neutralizer did in fact work, but only on raw Aetherium, and the Aetherium that Zakhaev has is enriched. So Deadbolt has to find a way to amplify the neutralizer so it'll actually work. The way to do this is by finding research documents from Dr. Strauss. Overall, I like this mission a tad bit more than the first because it was more of a challenge. The third story mission is called Defeat Zakhaev. This one has us deploying to Zakhaev's facility to activate the neutralizer and destroy his supply of Aetherium. This mission starts with you, as per usual, fighting hordes of the undead and soldiers until you arrive at the facility. In here, you must place an explosive on an enrichment device. Afterwards, you'll head to the neutralizer to power it up. But doing this will create an unforeseen consequence, as a giant ether worm will pop out of the ground. I'm gonna speak more on this boss fight later, as it's one of my favorites in all of zombies. But after defeating the worm, the cutscene will start. In the cutscene, it shows Deadbolt successfully activating the neutralizer to disable all the nearby Aetherium, taking care of the Zakhaev problem. Seriously, this is the last time we see him in the story. In the scuffle that happens, Jansen gets knocked out and is lifted in the air to a rift. A figure can be seen in the rift saying the words "let us in," showing that there are still bigger problems brewing. The fourth story mission is called Bad Signal. This one takes us into the Dark Aether. In it, we must break 4 seals by killing zombies near it, and that's it. Well, apart from the second giant worm that comes out of the ground. This worm is slightly harder than the last one, although not by much. Don't quote me on this, but the health might scale with players. I'm not too sure, I've never done this one with other players. The cutscene reveals that the figure in Defeat Sakaev is a being named the Entity, and this entity seems to be messing with Dr. Jansen, as we see her going through some kind of episode where she imagines herself in a building being raided by zombies, with some of the zombies being familiar faces. And while she thinks she's killing zombies, she accidentally slices into Ravanov's throat. But like I said, this doesn't kill him because it was in her imagination. This is definitely the weakest story mission. It's just 4 soul boxes and then redoing a boss fight that you just did. The 5th story mission is called Countermeasures and once again takes us into the Dark Aether. In here we must investigate a distress signal and escort another HCV. Halfway through, you'll encounter an electrified mimic that will stop the HCV until killed, and you must also take out a spore-infested mall. Once that's done and you fully escort the HCV, you'll start an Outlast contract. But once completed, a member of Terminus who we were actually saving in here will betray us, and will throw some kind of smoke on his soldiers, transforming them into a boss mangler. This is a slightly buffed HVT that can send out a giant electrical shock attack that will stun you for a little bit. Not too hard of a fight, better than the last Dark Aether mission as there's much more to do. The penultimate mission is called Union. In this one, you have to follow Ravanov and Jansen. After walking around for a bit, some orbs will shoot out of an ether storm. You must go and find where they went. When you find them, you will shoot them and they will create a crystal. You must interact with the crystal, which will start a puzzle. To complete this, you must look at the 3 symbols that appear on the crystal. Next, you must run around the surrounding area to find 3 rocks that have the same symbols on them. When you find them, you'll shoot them in the same order that's on the crystal. Next, you'll return to Jansen, where you see her getting lifted into the air by the entity. So now you must go and break some seals just like you did in the first mission. After you do these, it'll tell you to cleanse 1 more relic, but instead of it being just another soul box, it'll spawn in a boss disciple. In the cutscene, Ravanov plays a recording left by Elizabeth Gray. It reveals that Dr. Jansen is the daughter of Samantha, Maxis, and Ravanov, with Gray being her surrogate mother. Requiem took genetic samples from Ravanov and Sam to make this happen. It also revealed how Jansen is bonded with the Dark Aether, and that the entity is a reflection of Jansen and basically her echo within the Dark Aether. The final story mission is called Ascension. In this mission, you'll be confronting the entity. Here you must find some relics that are connected to Dr. Jansen and the entity. These relics are found near pillars, which are once again just soul boxes. After doing this a couple times, you must climb a skyscraper. At the top, you'll be teleported to a floating ship. Make your way through the ship to get teleported again. After getting teleported from the ship, this will take you to the boss fight arena. In here, you must kill the entity. Now, I really want to discuss this boss fight because I fucking love it, but I have a section for this later, so we'll get to that when we get to it. The cutscene reveals it's been 3 months since the events of the mission. In West Virginia, Jansen is gathering research about Project Janus and the events that transpired in Liberty Falls. Although during a phone call with Ravanov, a figure will appear in the mirror of the hotel room Jansen is staying in. After hearing some voices, Jansen walks up to the mirror where she gets pulled in by an arm coming out of the mirror. And that's where the story leaves off, set to be continued in Black Ops 6. Overall, I actually really liked MWZ's story. I thought Jansen and the entity were compelling characters, and I enjoyed her relationship with Ravanov. I was genuinely excited to see where the story would go during the game's life cycle. The missions leave a bit to be desired. I wouldn't call any of them bad, just a bit boring. I do think showing the characters in Cold War having died inside a locked room was a pretty bad choice, although I think this could have been for a good reason. I really liked Weaver, Carver, Strauss, and Gray from Cold War, and I was hoping to see them again. And while we are seeing them again in BO6, it sucks knowing that they just end up dying. So good job to Treyarch for the story this time around. I wish we got more story missions to flesh out the characters a bit more, but in the end I really did enjoy it. The Dark Aether rifts are a main source of content throughout MWC's lifecycle. These would be the main thing people would look forward to because it was the only way to experience a new area in the game. There ended up being about 4 rifts added to the game. The most important things about these being that they held the new schematics that would get added. With a new rift meant new classified schematics. To enter the rifts, you must venture into the tier 3 zones. In tier 3, you'll notice some ether tornadoes spinning around. These are where the gates are. To actually see the gates, you must complete a series of tasks to gain items to place on pedestals near the gate. Once you complete that quest, the gate will start spawning in. Now you must find a sigil. Sigils can be regularly found by doing tier 3 contracts. Once you find a sigil, you can walk up to the gate and activate it. This will initiate a countdown into the Dark Aether. Now every rift in the game has 2 separate versions. We have the normal and the elder. Like I just explained, getting a normal sigil from tier 3 contracts will place you into the normal Dark Aether. Think of it like the tier 4 zone. In this, you can do whatever you want. You can go ahead and complete the contracts as you have 30 minutes. But there's also a separate sigil called the Elder Sigil, which you can gain by doing the contracts inside the normal Dark Aether. The Elder version of the Dark Aether Rift is kinda like a tier 5 zone, and you only have 15 minutes to get everything done. The benefit of doing this is to actually be able to get schematics from the contracts. The first rift was added in Season 1 Reloaded, and this takes place in Albagra. A trend you'll see in every rift is that they only have 3 contracts, and take place in a much smaller zone. This one has an Outlast, an Aether Reactor, and an Escort. The Outlast isn't the hardest thing in the world, although the space you have isn't a lot to work with, but just mantle around a lot and you'll be fine. The Aether Reactors can be pretty difficult if you don't use Casimirs, but if you do, then it's gonna be a breeze. Just throw one down near the reactor and pray a Mangler doesn't shoot you. The Escort, however, is pretty goddamn hard. I didn't end up doing it because I didn't really want to bring in a VR11, and because I'm a puss. Overall, this is a pretty good Dark Aether. The scenery is goddamn beautiful and is quite challenging with how tight quarters the map is. The second rift was added in Season 2 Reloaded and takes place in Sayed City. The contracts for this rift would be an Outlast, Aether Reactors, and a Bounty. The Bounty was a great addition as it's one of the best contracts in the game, even though it can be cheesed pretty hard with that jug suit. The Outlast contract this time is a lot harder. It's quite a bit more close quarters, but that makes it even more fun, and I enjoy doing this rift a lot more because of it. The Aether Reactors are once again more or less the same. If you use a Casimir and cheese it, it's very easy. I do like this rift a lot more than Season 1 because you can consistently do all the contracts in solo, and I'm primarily a solo player, so that's nice. The third rift was added in Season 3 Reloaded, and takes place at Zarkra Hydroelectric. The contracts here are an Outlast, a Bounty, and an Escort. The Outlast this time is probably, I would say, the hardest one. Strangely, this Dark Aether does the contracts a little bit differently. They aren't Mr. Peaks plushes like the other ones, but instead pillars. And when you activate them, you are given a special item. Like for instance, when you start the Outlast, it'll give you the Numb Foot, which will greatly increase your movement speed. And I gotta say, this should just be the default stamina up running speed. Listen, stamina up is my favorite perk in all of zombies, but goddamn, it is so ass in this game. You barely notice any speed from it. And this makes you feel like you have that tier 5 Cold War stamina up, which I miss so dearly. How I wish so much that they made this into a schematic. Anyways, this is a fantastic Outlast, and I love the challenge it gives you. And the Bounty is, once again, just a Bounty. I'm pretty sure it can also be other stuff, but this time I got a Mega Abomination. And the Bounty this time is a lot harder than the last because you cannot use kill streaks in here. Or at the very least, you can't use the Juggernaut kill streak. So this one is pretty nice, and you got a lot of space if you get a Mega Abomination. Once again, I didn't do the Escort for the same reason as Season 1. Didn't want to bring a VR11. And because I'm a put. Final rift would be added in Season 5 Reloaded, and takes place at Al Mazrah. The contracts here would of course be an Outlast and an Escort as per usual, but with the addition of a Spore control. The Outlast of course is great, you know I always love being Outlast, it's the best contract in the game, but this one does it a little bit differently. About halfway through, a Mimic or a Mangler that's electrified will spawn in. It's not very hard to take down. If you're in a squad, it's gonna die immediately, and you don't even have to kill it if you don't want to, because once the Outlast is complete, it can just die to the reward rift. But you know, it's nice that they try to make it a little bit more difficult. The Spore control is actually really goddamn good. The spores are scattered around the map, so you gotta take these jump pads to get to them. Or you can just scorch her, like most people. And the Escort, while again I didn't do it, I actually fucking love this one. This is one part where you have to go down this tight ass alleyway, and you got zombies coming around from every angle, and you just don't have a lot of room to run around in, and oh, it's great. I kind of wish I ended up doing it. This is definitely my favorite Dark Aether. The scenery alone makes it just absolutely goddamn amazing. And whatever team worked on this Dark Aether, and really all of them, you need to hire them as level designers for a Dark Aether only round-based map because it is goddamn incredible. Overall, the Dark Aether rifts are a fantastic addition to the game and a great way to add more schematics. Although I don't think they should have been the only way of new schematics entering the game. Regardless, they're all beautiful. Please hire the people who made these to be a level designer on a Dark Aether centric map. And if I had to rank them, I would say from top to bottom it'd be Season 5, Season 2, Season 1, and Season 3. The Unstable Rifts were added in Season 4 Reloaded. Basically, this is just a side quest they added. Around the map you can find these pillars that are like the ones from the story missions, but they will have a AAT symbol on them. What you gotta do is have the same AAT on your gun and you can interact with it, and it'll start a soul box where you just gotta kill zombies with the AAT. You gotta do this about 4 times and then an unstable rift will open up. The thing about this though is that when you open up that unstable rift, other players could just steal it for some fucking reason, and I have no idea why they would design it this way. It kind of promotes just letting somebody else do all the work and then taking it at the last second. It doesn't make any sense why they would make this kind of competitive, because it doesn't make any sense, and I'm pretty sure you can only do this a few times in a match. I think it might be 3 to 5, I'm not too sure though. So this is just fucking bewildering to me. It should have never been designed like this, and I have no idea why you could just steal it from somebody. But if you do actually make it to your rift, it's like entering the dark ether where it'll start a countdown and you have to accept it. Once you finally enter the unstable rift, you'll notice it's one of the areas from the season 1 rift but closed down. So it's kind of a shame it's just reused, but it's just, I mean, I guess they didn't really have much of a choice. What you're going to be doing in the unstable rift is surviving 5 phases. That's right, not rounds, phases. But you would think, oh, so I just gotta kill zombies and, you know, make that shit go up? No. What you really do is just wait. You just wait until a boss spawns in, and then you kill that boss, and then the phase will go up. That's just all you're doing. You're running around, surviving, waiting for the boss to spawn in, and then you shoot it like a million fucking times because they're bullet spongy as all hell, and then that's it. You kill them, the phase goes up, and then you just repeat that 5 times. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not too fan of the unstable rift. The footage you're seeing right now is the only time I've done it. I actually did do it when it released, I just didn't have much interest in it. And so I did it like 20 minutes ago after I'm recording this voiceover right now. And to be honest with you, it's fine. The reward for it, like the reason you want to do this in the first place is that if you complete it, all of your cooldowns are immediately refreshed and you could just start using everything again. So let's say you craft a pack 3 crystal before you did this, you complete it, go out, it's completely done, you could just go ahead and craft another one immediately. And that is very, very nice. Like, that's a nice reward, but to get it, it's just not worth it. I feel like it would be better to just play normal matches and get like a bunch of points and get it that way to get your cooldowns back. I feel like the reason they added this was to cater to like small map trainers and shit like that, to, you know, get like a sense of round base in the game. But the way zombies work in this game, with how far they can hit you and how fast they hit you, it doesn't work. Like, training in this game genuinely is kind of next to impossible because of just how zombies hit you. So I'm not seeing much of a point of this, unless I really needed my cooldowns refreshed. If I like wanted to do something, or I wanted to give somebody something, I don't ever really see myself doing this again. In the end, I'm not too big of a fan of the unstable rifts. I honestly wish we had just rather got another Dark Aether rift instead, but I guess they could have been short on time. They had to, you know, just ship this out. But the camo you get for completing it is sick. It's not too bad. I like it. Like I said, overall, not really worth doing unless you just want to go ahead and try it out. Boss fights is something I want to actually have a section for, because I feel like MWZ did them pretty well here and there, and boss fights are weirdly a pretty big part of the game. Every single like big thing that you would do would have a boss fight. So like I said earlier, the worm boss fight from the Defeat, Zakayev, Bad Signal, and you can do a third one if you do a quest in the middle of a match, or not the middle of a match, it happens at the end. But it is, I actually really like the worm boss fight. I think it's one of the best things about the game. It is really fun to do, especially the red worm at the end of the match. If you do that, it's doing it with a bunch of people is like the best part about it, because you have so many people shooting this giant ass worm, and its laser attack is really goddamn deadly. It's fun to dodge and stuff, and the stuff that you can shoot out that'll come at you and damage you, I like that a lot. It's a good challenge. It keeps you on your feet, so you know that you got to be like alert if it's coming at you. The ability, I don't think it can do it in the other, like the 2 missions, but the red version of it can eat you and shoot you in the air, and that is a crazy moment, and I fucking love that. The entity boss fight in Ascension is probably, I don't know if I'd say number 1, but it could be in the top 3 like favorite zombie boss fights for me, because it is so fun. The islands that are like spread around that you shoot over to is like Ancient Evil, and I love Ancient Evil and its boss fight. So that just boosts it because I love that. I kind of wish the islands would get destroyed because she has this one attack where she will mark every island and it'll do like a instant down attack, and I wish at some points the islands would get destroyed so you wouldn't have as much room to run around in. I love how in the second phase of the boss fight you have to like quickly shoot as many orbs as you can before she does the instant down attack. It's so much fun. The HVT, like buffed HVT, Mangler, Mimic, Disciple ones are just not amazing, but not too bad either. The Union boss fight of the Disciple, the first time I did it, I genuinely thought that it was the most shitty, dog awful boss fight in Zombies, like worse than the Beast from Beyond's. And the Beast from Beyond's cryptid boss fight is fucking awful, but redoing it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I like it a bit more. So basically in the boss fight there's a Disciple, it'll shock you and stuff, and it can spawn in two, like it can spawn like a Mimic and a Mangler, and you have to kill the Mimic or the Mangler before you can damage the Disciple again. And the thing about the Disciple is that since you can't damage it while the other bosses are alive, it can suck you and get its health back, and you can't do anything about it, so it adds a good amount of challenge to it. The other ones, the the countermeasures Mangler was fine. It's very easy, especially if you're in a, well, all these are pretty goddamn easy if you're in a squad, but solo, I've done all these solo, so that's my experience I'm speaking from. They're all a really damn good challenge in solo. Overall, I think MWZ excelled at boss fights. I never really thought boss fights were that big of a strong suit of Zombies. A lot of boss fights in Zombies are just really like bad to meh, but this game did them pretty goddamn well, and I like them a lot. MWZ's lifecycle content-wise was pretty tragic to say the least. The mode would only get content in the reloaded parts of seasons, and every time we got the exact same thing. We would get one new rift, 3 schematics, and an accompanying story quest. But even then, we didn't end up getting the usual stuff for season 4 or 6 because, season 4 was the unstable rift, and then season 6, we got nothing. The only thing Zombies got was you can enter the Dark Aether without a sigil, and your cooldowns are cut in half, which is nice, but it's not better than having new content. So I'm pretty sure at some point during, after season 1, Treyarch moved off of MWZ, that we're not going to work on it anymore. They put it on somebody else, so because they need to focus on BO6 obviously, so somebody else is working on this the whole time, and MWZ got shafted quite hard content wise because I guess there just wasn't enough people and wasn't enough resources to actually get content out, because I'm kind of shocked they didn't just add like 5 new schematics just out of nowhere. Maybe they could have added like Bloodwolf Bite. I guess that would have made sense because of the dog one, but then they could have added like Blaze Phase into the game, so just do tier 2 contracts, you might get it one day. Maybe they could have put a grappling hook into the game, just as like for people who don't got a Scorcher. That would be a better way. You could get that in like tier 2 or something. It sucks that the only way that schematics got put into the game were Dark Aether rifts, and it's just, there could have been so many more things that they could have put in the game. But overall, I liked the Dark Aether rifts a lot, but I just wish we got a little bit more. And it sucks that every season it was only in the halfway points of the season. We never got anything at the beginning, so every season zombie players would have to just wait. We would see what's coming up and we get disappointed every time, because honestly some of the schematics that came at the end of the game were just not good. Like the golden mass filter, which is something we got at the I think season 3. What it is when you put it on, your gas mask will automatically refill itself when you're out of the a gas zone, like a infested stronghold, or you're in the Aether storm. And that's nice, but it's like, the only way I can see this really being useful is in the red worm boss fight at the end of the match, but you're never going to be able to use the effect of it of getting out of the storm because you're always going to be in it. So it just doesn't, there's not much of a use of it. And the Sergeant's Beret is just like another, like, you have a friendly companion with you. It has a side effect of when you first put it on, you are shielded from mercs so they won't shoot you, but it'll immediately go away when you kill one or you get into a car or you shoot. So there's just not much of a use to it. Overall, content wise for stuff for MWZ was really sad. I think if we ever could get a game, an objective-based zombies game that has a full development cycle, uh, I can't wait to see what kind of stuff they can put. Cause like think about if MWZ got a full cycle and they knew all the stuff they were gonna be able to put into the game. I think that they could have made some really insanely cool schematics, and sad that we weren't able to get something like that. Content drops for MWZ were probably the most disappointing thing about the game. Alright, so I'm just gonna give off some nitpicks and little things I like about the game. First nitpick is that, like I said in the Unstable Rifts, the zombie reach and how just like zombie mechanics in this game are pretty bad, to say the least. I don't like how far zombies can hit you in this game. It's so jarring sometimes that you think that you have enough room to get past the zombie, but then you just hit like 2-3 times and all your armor is gone. I really hope BO6 isn't like this, because I can't see myself high rounding on the game if it is, because I genuinely cannot fucking stand how zombies work in this game. So that was a nitpick. Might as well get to a thing I like. The Scorcher is one of my favorite wonder weapons. I absolutely goddamn love this thing. Not only is it nice to just shoot it and have that beam stay there for a few seconds to kill some zombies, but being able to fly around is amazing. I goddamn love it. Its design is fucking sick as well, and the name. And the moment I got the schematic for this, it was just bliss. Like, I hate playing the game without it. It's that good. A nitpick though, the Merc contracts, the Aether reactors, and the other one where you like sit there and just wait for them to come are both shitty. They're just not fun contracts. Fighting Mercs in this game is just not fun at all, because they're so goddamn, like, they got fucking aimbot and they just shred through your armor. Same thing with Warlords. Just Mercs overall shouldn't be in this game. I'm just not a fan of Mercs. Another thing I like, the lighting in tier 3. I love that. I think that looks pretty goddamn good. The servers in the game are pretty goddamn bad. Like, these are some of the worst servers I've ever seen in the game. Like you might have noticed in a lot of the clips, I had like just a packet loss at the top left of my screen the entire goddamn time, and that's 90% of matches. Like, you could have like 0 ping, and I guarantee you, you're gonna get a packet loss at some point in any match you play. Even in multiplayer, it's bad, but in zombies, it's worse. Another thing that's kind of shitty is how slow tier 3 contracts are at respawning. We're so late in the game's life cycle that almost everybody is immediately flocking to tier 3. So you have so many people in there, and if you're solo, you're gonna be waiting so long to get contracts to spawn in. So I wish they would either, they're not gonna obviously at this point, but I wish that they would either respawn faster or there'd be more of them. Another thing that was kind of shitty was that we didn't get any new enemies apart from a variation of them being the Mega Abomination, and I do love the Mega Abomination. I think it's better than the normal Abomination. I just wish we could have got at least like one new enemy, because I despise Manglers. I fucking hate them. Mimics are fine. They're fine. Enemies are chill. I don't really mind them. Disciples the same. Just, you know, fuck Manglers. Last shitty thing I can think of is that the perks, AATs, and field upgrades are all basically at the tier 1 versions of Cold Wars, so all of them feel really just bad to use. Like, Aether Shroud, for instance, is basically at its tier 1 version at Cold War. Like, you don't have 2 charges, you don't get that boost forward, you don't get faster, you don't revive people faster. It's really kind of just, I'd love to use Aether Shroud, I still use it, but it's just really not that good to use in this game, because the best part about it in Cold War was that boost you get forward. So, you know, because like there's been a couple times where I'm, you know, about to go down, I use it, but then I stay there, and then a Mangler's shooting at me and I go down anyway, because, you know, I don't get that boost. So that kind of blows. It's also Elemental Pop. It doesn't have Electric Cherry in it anymore, so it's just, you know, an afterthought perk. There's not much of use bringing it. Like I said earlier, stamina is just not as fast as it should be, and I wish that, you know, I wish that they would have added the upgrade system from Cold War, because literally this game I feel like was fucking perfect for like Cold War's upgrade system. Like, there's so much stuff you do out of game in MWZ that it just would have made sense to have that upgrade system, because it would have fit perfectly in the game, but, you know, maybe next time. So, for the conclusion, Overall, I thought Modern Warfare Zombies was a pretty good zombies game. A lot of things wrong with it, a lot of good to it though, and to be honest, I thought it was a worthwhile experience that if you're hesitant on getting it, I would say go for it, especially if you have an Xbox or a PC and you can just get it on Game Pass. It kind of sucks because this game is finite, it's multiplayer only, you need at least like I think 20 players in a lobby for it to start. So one day, this game will just not be able to be played anymore because no one's going to be playing the game. So that sucks, and it's already, no new content's going to get added, so if you're getting it now, it is, it sucks to get it late in its life cycle, but I still would recommend it because I thought it was pretty fun, and I liked it. So I would give it, I would say, I think a 7.10. I would say 7.10 isn't too bad of a rating. Uh, I had a lot of fun with the game. There was a period where I thought it was just really shitty, but I would play this like a million times over than Exo Zombies or Vanguard. So, there's that. So, full conclusion, MWZ is a good zombies game. I liked it, and I am excited to see what Treyarch does next with some objective-based thing, and I am excited for BO6.